In Jordan, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Mustafa as part of his Middle East tour, which focuses on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. In Russia, within the framework of the BRICS foreign ministers meeting, FM Lavrov stated that the group is promoting changes for the construction of a multipolar world. And the representative of Venezuela before the UN, Samuel Moncada, presented himself before the International Court of Justice to reaffirm his country's position regarding the Guayana Esequiba dispute. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. In Jordan, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with the Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Mustafa on the side of a Gaza Emergency Relief Summit. The humanitarian aid conference is being held in the Arab country organized by Jordan, Egypt, and the United Nations. The gathering seeks to identify ways to strengthen the international community's response to the humanitarian catastrophe, outline effective standardized measures, procedures, and logistics for a collective and coordinated response to address the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The Secretary of State is touring the Middle East reportedly to promote a ceasefire plan in Gaza. In this regard, on Tuesday, he claimed to have secured the Israeli Prime Minister's commitment to a ceasefire.
I met with Prime Minister Netanyahu last night, and he reaffirmed his commitment to the proposal. I also had an opportunity to speak to the Defense Minister Gallant and other senior Israelis this morning. And I think there is a strong consensus, again, behind moving forward with the proposal. But it really is down to one person at this point. We'll see what comes from them.
And while this is going on, at least 11 people were killed in the Gaza Strip on Tuesday as a result of Israeli shelling, despite the ceasefire resolution adopted by the United Nations Security Council. In this way, the Gaza Health Ministry confirmed that 8 of the victims were killed after an Israeli bombardment in an apartment in the city of Gaza, while the occupation army also targeted a house in Deir al-Balah in the center of the Palestinian enclave, claiming the lives of 3 civilians. The attacks persist amid reports from the Palestinian media on Hamas accepting the ceasefire resolution adopted by the United Nations Security Council, as informed by Sami Abu Suri, senior official of the resistance movement. In this context, the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas issued a statement welcoming the resolution adopted by the UN Security Council. The movement praises the fact that the text calls for a permanent ceasefire and the complete withdrawal of the Israeli troops, as well as the exchange of prisoners. The UN proposal also includes the reconstruction of the destroyed areas in the Gaza Strip, the return of the displaced to their places of residence, and the rejection of any demographic change, alteration, or reduction of the territory of the Gaza Strip, as well as the provision of the necessary assistance to Palestinians. In this regard, Hamas also stressed its readiness to enter into direct negotiations in order to materialize the UN resolution. In Palestine, human rights organizations denounced the high rate in which Israel is murdering Palestinians since the October 7th onslaught against the Gaza Strip. According to data gathered by the organizations, the Zionist regime killing rate has ascended to 2,000 Palestinians per month. Specifically, 3,163 Palestinians were killed in February, 2,790 in March, 1,788 in April, and 1,780 in May. Furthermore, in the period from June 4th to June 9th of this year, 605 murderers were recorded, with the highest number of deaths being reported after the Nusrat camp massacre, in which 283 people were killed and 816 were injured. The concerning data evidences the ongoing genocide Israel is perpetrating against the Palestinian people. The United Nations suspended humanitarian operations at the U.S. pier off the Gaza coast following a deadly Israeli operation. In this regard, the UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric described as standard procedure the suspension of humanitarian operations at the U.S. pier in the aftermath of the Israeli operation. The official stressed that the agency must resume humanitarian operations as soon as possible. In this sense, the UN World Food Programme had previously announced that it would call off operations at the dock pending a thorough assessment of the security situation. The move comes after Tel Aviv regime forces conducted an incursion into the Gaza Strip using vehicles identified as humanitarian aid to reach hostages, killing over 250 Palestinians in the process.
While the World Food Programme colleagues tell us that we are temporarily pausing operations at the floating dock until a thorough assessment of the security situation is conducted to ensure the safety of our staff and our partners.
And we stay in Palestine as in the occupied West Bank, a general strike is held to denounce the murder of 4 young people at the hands of the Israeli army. Stores and public entities in the West Bank remain closed on Tuesday in response to the call by President Mahmoud Abbas for a work stoppage. The measure of force follows the murder on Monday night of 4 youth in the town of Kfar Nima, where 8 others were wounded after being shot by Israeli soldiers besieging the place. In parallel to its genocidal war in Gaza, Israel has launched an offensive in the occupied West Bank, where 538 Palestinians, including 133 minors, have been killed since October 7th. And we now move on to other topics. Saudi Arabia decided on Monday not to renew the petrodollar agreement that expired on June 9th, ending a nearly 50-year relationship with the United States. The agreement, signed in 1974 with former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, involved the creation of an arrangement for Saudi oil exports to be paid for in U.S. dollars. As a result of Monday's decision, Saudi Arabia can now sell oil and other goods in currencies such as euro, yen, and yuan instead of exclusively in the U.S. dollar. The change could accelerate the de-dollarization process while challenging the dominance of the petrodollar system that has been in place since the United States stopped its currency convertibility to gold in 1972. Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Rescue teams in Malawi have found the wreckage of a plane that was carrying Vice President Saulos Chilima, but reported that there were no survivors. The plane had left the capital Lilongwe on Monday, but failed to reach its destination amid bad weather. The remains of the military aircraft were located a day later in a mountainous area in the north of the country. President Lazarus Chakwera, who had first ordered immediate search and rescue operations, later announced in a televised address that the plane had been found completely destroyed and with no survivors. 7 passengers, including 51-year-old Chilima and a former First Lady, along with 3 military crew members, were on board.
And I am deeply saddened and sorry to inform you all that it has turned out to be a terrible tragedy. The search and rescue team has found the aircraft near a hill in the Chikangawa forest, and they have found it completely destroyed with no survivors, as all passengers on board were killed on impact.
In other news, in Russia, within the framework of the BRICS foreign ministers meeting, the Russian Foreign Affairs Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that the group is promoting changes in the international scene for the construction of a multipolar world. Lavrov described BRICS' approach as a historical process for promoting equality to build a more just future. He also stated that the principles of egalitarian cooperation have also been reflected and materialized in other organizations and forums of the world in which work is being done for global economic recovery after COVID-19 pandemic and to fulfill objectives based on sustainable development.
The principle of multipolar world order is not something that depends on the desire of a country or a group of countries. Multipolarity is an objective phenomenon, historical process that is developing, which is impossible to stop even if the West tries to slow down this process in order to preserve its hegemony, proclaimed as the priority objective of the United States and its allies.
And the Foreign Affairs Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, also denounced the constant efforts of the West to maintain the division in a world with different blocs.
They continue to say that it is impossible to change the regime, the world order where the United States has the priority role along with NATO and the European Union, is a neo-colonial mentality that is reflected in everything that the West does collectively. It is precisely the West that tries to divide the world into different blocs.
In this context, the government of Russia and Venezuela signed a memorandum of cooperation in the fight against U.S. sanctions. The document was signed by the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Venezuelan counterpart Ivan Gil within the framework of the meeting of the BRICS foreign ministers in the Russian city of Nizhny Novgorod. The head of the Russian diplomacy emphasized the good relations between Moscow and Caracas, highlighting the effective cooperation in the fields of energy and medicine, while specifying that the agreement will contribute even more to the common work between both countries. For his part, Gil reiterated Venezuela's interest in becoming a full member of the group of emerging economies BRICS, a position that Lavrov supported. And in Russia, in order to keep the personnel's training and equipment, the Defense Ministry announced the second phase of military exercises of the non-strategic nuclear forces. The armed forces of Belarus joined the second stage, which is intended to ensure the defense of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of both countries. A statement released by the Russian ministry specified that soldiers from the two nations will be trained in coordination of the use of tactical nuclear weapons. Earlier, the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko stressed that the joint military exercises with Russia are being carried out to train, prepare, and be ready since the world is dangerous and unstable. On Monday, main left-wing parties of France announced the creation of a popular front against fascism and the far right. The meeting was attended by members of La France Insoumise and Socialist, Greens, and Communist parties. According to the statement issued by these four groups, they will support single candidates in the first round of the legislative elections. In this sense, the parties indicated that their candidates will carry a disruptive program detailing the measures to be taken in the first 100 days of the new Popular Front government. The decision comes after President Emmanuel Macron called for early legislative elections scheduled for June 30th and July 7th, respectively.
We have just published a first statement, in which we express our will for the great democratic battle that is coming in 3 weeks' time, our willingness to go into this battle together, to propose an alternative to the policies of Emmanuel Macron and to fight against the far right.
In this regard, the National Secretary of French Communist Party, Fabien Roussel, urged more organizations to join the Popular Front.
We signed a document with 7 political organizations and launched an appeal for more people to join us tomorrow. And I think there are already about 15 political organizations that have joined this appeal this afternoon. Tomorrow I hope that we'll reach 20 or so, and that this large gathering will enable us to reach victory.
We have a final show break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and also share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back from the South. The representative of Venezuela before the UN, Samuel Moncada, presented himself before the International Court of Justice to reaffirm his country's position regarding the Guayana Esequiba dispute. In this sense, the Venezuelan diplomat stated that they are before the ICJ following instructions by President Nicolás Maduro and the popular mandate. He stated that they are there to defend the Guayana Esequiba and reaffirmed that the Geneva Agreement is the international framework under which the dispute with Guyana needs to be solved. In 2018, Guyana unilaterally decided to approach the ICJ regarding the issue, breaching the Geneva Agreement's mandate to always proceed with the agreement of both parties. And in Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro denounced attempts by the United States to destabilize peace and democracy in the country. During his program, Con Maduro Más, the president denounced the destabilization attempts by U.S. imperialism by sneaking Colombian hitmen and drug traffickers into the country. However, he said that since 2023, these hitmen have begun to get captured, not only for perpetrating assassination attempts against him, but also for threatening peace and democracy in Venezuela. During the broadcast, the head of state also highlighted the blessings and encouraging messages that he has received from the people during his tours of national territory. We go now to Argentina, where more than 80 resignations from Javier Milei's cabinet have been registered in the last 6 months as a result of internal conflicts. According to government sources, a total of 82 officials, including ministers, secretaries, undersecretaries, and directors, have so far resigned from their posts. The resignations are related to internal conflicts and scandals linked to the distribution of food for soup kitchens, overpaid salaries with funds coming from international organizations. According to experts, the resignations are an unequivocal sign of instability within the Milei's administration and the lack of expertise in political management. The areas with the highest number of departures are the former ministries of Education, Labor, Culture, and Women, Gender, and Diversity. We go now to sports. As 45 days before the start of Paris 2024 Olympic Games, the French swimming team has decided not to train in the Seine River because of the pollution levels still recorded.
The sports delegations remain concerned about the unhealthy water of the Seine, whose pollution level still exceeds the international standards for an Olympic competition. This is why the French swimming team has once again cancelled one of its open water training sessions in addition to the strong currents, and in particular the deterioration of the water quality due to the rains recorded in May. These setbacks jeopardize the holding of the triathlon and freestyle swimming events in the Seine. One of the major challenges of these Olympic Games.
And in Syria, the Athletes of the Future event began, where more than 400 children from the northwest of the country will compete in various sports.
In the run-up to the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, more than 400 children from the city of Azaz, northwest of Aleppo in Syria, will showcase their sporting skills at the Athletes of the Future event organized by a local charity. Participants in these games will compete in a variety of sports during the month of June, including football, table tennis, and athletics, disciplines in which they have been training for several months. It should be noted that most of these children live in rural areas of the town, while the organizers also highlighted the potential of these young athletes in the face of major commitments.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.